Hi, I'm Jimmy Kimmel. I hope you enjoyed that video. Hit subscribe and all your dreams will come true, assuming your dream.
The evening shimmered with the grandeur and glamour that only Edinburgh could offer. The Outlander annual award ceremony turning the historic Central Hall into a cathedral of light, applause, and speculation. Red and blue beams cut across the red carpet, illuminating a sea of photographers whose flashes erupted like constellations in motion. Reporters, celebrity bloggers, and fans clustered at the velvet ropes, craning for the moment when Sam Heughan and Caitriona Balfe, television's most adored screen partners, would step into view. This was a night designed to honor the artistry of Outlander's 7th season, yet it was also one where every movement, every expression, every brush of a hand was catalogued and interpreted. When Caitriona appeared, she seemed to glow under the lights, her emerald gown clinging delicately to her frame. Her hair swept back into a loose bun that allowed a few soft strands to fall against her collarbone. The crowd erupted as Sam followed, tailored in a black tuxedo that mirrored his composed charisma. Together, they walked the carpet side by side, their fingers intertwined in a gesture that looked spontaneous yet perhaps too perfect for the cameras. Sam's hand occasionally rested on her shoulder, his lips leaning close to whisper something inaudible. And each time he did, the photographer's bulbs exploded again, capturing the tenderness between them. During interviews, Sam was effusive in his admiration for Caitriona. He called her his inspiration, his best co-star, his dearest friend, each compliment punctuated by a smile that lingered a moment longer than the etiquette of publicity required. The audience adored it. Fans screamed their approval, interviewers laughed warmly, and social media began to overflow with slow-motion clips and affectionate hashtags. To the world, it was the perfect portrait of artistic chemistry, two people whose connection had transcended the screen. Yet beneath the polished glow of admiration, Caitriona felt a quiet unease rising within her. Every time Sam's words wrapped around her name, she felt both flattered and exposed. She admired him deeply, and she knew his praise was sincere. But in that sincerity, there was also something that made her chest tighten. A subtle reminder that every gesture between them was no longer just theirs. It belonged to the audience, to the endless analysis of fans, to the hungry eyes of journalists who lived to turn affection into narrative. Caitriona had always valued privacy, the stillness between takes, the quiet laughter in the makeup trailer when no cameras were watching. In those moments, she could simply be herself, unfiltered, unseen, free of expectation. But when Sam, in his good-hearted enthusiasm, turned that private admiration into public spectacle, she felt as though something sacred had been lifted out of her hands. His compliments, though genuine, carried the weight of performance under the stage lights, and every time he looked at her with that soft gratitude in front of hundreds, she wondered whether he realized that for her, being adored publicly sometimes felt like being undressed emotionally. It wasn't vanity or coldness. It was self-preservation, the instinct of someone who had spent years balancing her identity as a woman, an actress, and a public figure. After the ceremony, as the glittering event dissolved into laughter and champagne at the post-gala banquet, Caitriona found herself standing alone near a corner table, a glass of red wine catching the light like a ruby. Around her, conversations swelled and ebbed, laughter blending with the sound of clinking glasses. Across the room, she could see Sam surrounded by colleagues, smiling, his hand resting lightly on the shoulder of a producer as he spoke. His eyes flickered toward her every so often, and she offered a faint smile in return. But it was a smile weighed down by something she couldn't quite name. That was when an entertainment reporter approached, voice soft yet purposeful. "Caitriona," he began, recorder in hand. "There were so many touching moments tonight. Sam spoke so warmly about you, called you an inspiration, a friend he couldn't imagine the show without. How did you feel hearing those words in front of everyone?" For a moment, Caitriona hesitated, her fingers tightening around the stem of her glass. She could have given a safe answer, the kind that satisfied headlines without revealing truth. But she was tired of performances that extended beyond the script. Her gaze drifted again to Sam, his laughter still lighting up the corner of the room, and then she turned back to the reporter. "To be honest," she said quietly, her voice even but sincere. "Sometimes I feel uncomfortable." The words hung in the air like a sudden silence after music. The reporter blinked, unsure whether to interrupt. Caitriona continued, "I really do appreciate what Sam says. He's kind, he's genuine, and I have a lot of affection for him, both as a colleague and a friend. But when those words become so public, spoken under bright lights, in front of fans, cameras, hundreds of watching eyes, I stop feeling like myself. I stop being Caitriona, the person, and start becoming Caitriona, the idea, the image people project onto me." The reporter, caught between professionalism and empathy, lowered his recorder slightly. The camera flashes slowed as if the room itself were listening. "I'm not blaming Sam," she added gently. "He's done nothing wrong. He's generous, and he means every word. But sometimes, kindness can feel overwhelming when it's framed for an audience. Not every compliment is easy to hear, not because it's insincere, but because it can make you feel defined by someone else's vision of you rather than your own truth." Her words, though measured, carried a rawness that startled even her. She had never meant to voice this aloud, but perhaps some truths demanded release. When the reporter asked what she would want to change, she paused, her gaze distant and thoughtful. "I'd want moments that aren't staged," she said at last. "Moments that aren't filtered through a camera lens or lit by spotlights. I'd want him to be able to say those things privately, just between us, so I know that when he says them, it's for me, not for anyone else. I'd want to feel safe in that space, to keep a part of myself private, because privacy isn't secrecy. It's ownership of your own feelings." Her words, though softly spoken, spread quickly once the interview was published. Some media outlets headlined it with melodramatic phrases. Caitriona Balfe admits discomfort with Sam Heughan's public affection, while others framed it as a brave, honest insight into the complexities of fame. Fans debated endlessly online, some defending her desire for boundaries, others criticizing her for seemingly rebuffing the affection of a beloved co-star. Yet for those who truly listened, there was no malice in her tone, no accusation. There was only a quiet plea for understanding, the recognition that even amid fame, admiration, and artistic partnership, a human being still needs space to breathe, to feel, to remain unseen when she chooses. Sam himself, when later asked about her comments, reportedly nodded thoughtfully and said, "She's right. Sometimes I forget that what feels natural to me might feel different to someone else." In the weeks that followed, their public interactions softened. There were still smiles, still warmth, but now a respectful distance, a shared awareness that affection, when genuine, does not always need an audience. Behind the camera, their friendship endured, perhaps even deepened, rooted in mutual respect and the understanding that true connection thrives best in quiet spaces, far from the echo of applause. Caitriona's confession had not been a scandal, as some claimed, but a reflection of something far more universal: the desire to hold on to one's inner world in a culture that constantly demands to see it. And as the memory of that night in Edinburgh faded into the archives of entertainment history, one truth remained: beneath the lights and rumors, beneath the fascination and speculation.
And he told me about some petty revenge that he took, and I found it probably one of the funniest things I've ever heard. Basically, his friends took the mick out of him for getting an honorary degree.
When the interview was first published, it swept through the internet like wildfire, setting off a storm of speculation and emotional debate across entertainment pages, celebrity blogs, and devoted Outlander fan groups. Headlines blared sensationally. Caitriona Balfe admits feeling uncomfortable with Sam Heughan's public expressions. And in moments, both actors found themselves once again at the center of a familiar whirlwind of attention that blurred the lines between art and reality. The public reaction was divided. Some fans expressed heartfelt sympathy for Caitriona, noting that it must take courage to admit vulnerability in such a scrutinized space. "It turns out she felt pressured too," one supporter wrote. "That was brave. Not everyone likes to be seen that deeply." Others defended Sam, arguing that his open displays of affection were rooted not in performance but in sincerity, a manifestation of friendship and gratitude rather than anything romantic. Still, the conversation quickly turned into a broader discourse on boundaries. the complex territory between personal emotion and public expectation. Caitriona, as many observers pointed out, had simply voiced a truth that countless artists experience: that being adored, admired, and emotionally exposed in front of millions can feel overwhelming, even when the gestures come from a place of genuine respect. The international media wasted no time amplifying the story. Prominent outlets dissected every word of her statement, producing think pieces on the emotional toll of fame and the fragile distinction between professional affection and public intimacy. Psychologists and cultural commentators joined the discussion, suggesting that such moments highlight how celebrities must constantly negotiate authenticity under the gaze of a watching world. One article described it as a rare instance of emotional transparency within an industry that often confuses performance for reality, while another pointed out that the very honesty Caitriona showed might paradoxically deepen public fascination. The more she tried to reclaim privacy, the more the public yearned to know what lay behind her restraint. When Sam first heard about the interview, he was on set for an early morning shoot. The dawn light had not yet broken through the gray horizon, and the crew was setting up equipment in near silence. His phone buzzed repeatedly, messages from his manager, alerts from news apps, and a flood of social media notifications. As he read the headlines, a quiet heaviness settled over him. He stopped for a moment, looked up at the pale sky, and took a deep breath. He knew what this was about. He had crossed an invisible line, not out of malice, but out of emotion. He remembered that gala night vividly. The stage lights glowing like liquid gold, the applause roaring in his ears, and Caitriona standing beside him, poised yet faintly reserved. He had said, "I admire you for daring to do this story with me," his tone warm and earnest. The crowd erupted in cheers, mistaking friendship for confession, affection for romance. The moment had felt right to him then, but seeing the headlines now, he realized how differently it might have felt to her. Later that evening, after filming Wrapped, he sat in the quiet of his trailer, the screen light painting his face a soft blue. He hesitated for a long time before pressing the call button. When Caitriona answered, her voice was calm but tired. "I heard what you said," he began. "You said you felt uncomfortable when I spoke like that on stage." There was a pause, and then her measured reply, "You didn't do anything wrong by saying kind things, Sam. I just want to have moments that are ours, not for everyone else to witness. Sometimes I want to choose when to share and when to keep it private." The sincerity in her voice disarmed him. They spoke honestly without defensiveness. Sam apologized softly, promising to be more sensitive, to make sure that his admiration did not translate into pressure. Caitriona reassured him that she never meant to sound ungrateful, that she deeply valued his friendship, but she also needed to preserve the quiet corners of her own emotional space. A sanctuary away from the spotlight where their mutual respect could breathe without being photographed. From that conversation onward, subtle changes began to unfold between them. Nothing dramatic, nothing contrived, just quiet adjustments born of mutual understanding. At public events, Sam still expressed warmth and admiration, but his gestures became more restrained, his words more carefully measured. He would look her way before speaking, as if silently asking permission. When cameras flashed, he kept his distance just enough to avoid misunderstanding. In private, however, he found new ways to express gratitude. A quiet note slipped before a shoot, a late-night text after a long day, moments shared over coffee without the presence of cameras or questions. Caitriona, too, began to meet him halfway. During joint interviews, if he began to speak warmly about her, she would place a gentle hand on his arm or smile knowingly. Small, intimate gestures that told him when she was comfortable and when she needed the spotlight to dim. Their communication evolved into something more intuitive, defined not by spoken rules but by mutual respect and emotional intelligence. Observers noticed the difference. At the next gala, Sam praised Caitriona's artistry without turning it into a spectacle. He spoke of her professionalism, her strength, and her generosity as a collaborator. His tone soft, genuine, unperformed. The audience applauded warmly, sensing the authenticity behind his words. For the first time, the media coverage felt balanced, focusing on their professional harmony rather than imagined tension. A lesson in grace and boundaries, one journalist called it. Yet, privately, both still wrestled with the weight of the past months. Caitriona often found herself haunted by the echoes of old videos and fan edits that reinterpreted her discomfort as drama. Sometimes she would wake to a flood of messages asking, "Did you hear what Sam said about you?" Or, "Were you really upset that night?" Each time, she had to repeat the same careful explanation, that she was grateful, that she appreciated his kindness, but that she also had the right to choose when and how to receive such affection. It was not rejection, it was boundary. Sam, meanwhile, struggled with his own inner conflict. His natural instinct was to protect and uplift those he cared about, but now that very instinct felt like walking on glass. During one press conference, he began to compliment Caitriona, then caught sight of her subtle expression. A faint downward glance, a flicker of discomfort, and he stopped mid-sentence, turning his praise into a general remark about teamwork instead. Later, he would admit to a friend that he felt torn between wanting to express himself and fearing that his sincerity might be misread. Fame, he realized, demanded a constant negotiation between truth and performance, affection and restraint. For Caitriona, too, the experience became a mirror reflecting deeper questions about identity. Was she wrong to crave privacy when her career depended on public fascination? Could she still protect her inner life while fulfilling the expectations of fans who adored their chemistry? There were moments when she doubted herself,